Maybe first off, do you want to go more specifically into your sales journey? I suppose you said you started off setting, moved to closing management systems and stuff like that. Like, what kind of like took you through that path? Maybe even a little bit of like context. How did you get your first setting job, and kind of like how's that journey developed to obviously where you're at now?
Yeah, that's a good question. The whole process started when I was in university. I was working at a corporate B2B internship as a assistant level BDR, a BDR associate, pretty much just the bitch of the sales department. And yeah, it was at the time it was pretty sweet. You land a really cool offer at a big tech company, you get benefits, you get free lunch, like you think it's a pretty awesome gig. And I'm coming home to my apartment after working like a 9 hour a day. One of my friends' roommates that I met in the elevator, he was we him and I were chopping up a little bit about what he does and what I do, and he actually mentioned for the first time to me high ticket remote sales, and he was kind of talking about how he was able to stay at home, work from the comfort of his own home at his own desk, maybe take 3 to 4 sales calls, and he made 4 times what I made, and like it was something that didn't really seem real at the time. And when I remember I bumped into him in the elevator a few times. Like it was like it kept happening. And I kept asking questions and I kept saying, wow, like that's something that sounds really cool. And then eventually I just built up the courage. I just pestered him enough. I just knocked on his door. I was like, I gotta get into this. Like this needs to happen. Like there's no way I can't do it. Like you're a nice guy. You speak well, but I know I would be able to do the exact same thing. Long story short, he ended up hooking me up. His name was Max. Awesome, awesome guy. Hooked me up, got me into a community where I started. Did my basic trainings, understood the basic business model, hopped on my very, very first interview, got that interview, landed the role. Next month was making 5K CAD, and the rest is history. So that's a bit about how I got into the space, Tyler.
Super cool, Tristan. And it sounds like you've always kind of been interested in sales, right? You started in the BDR role before transitioning to high ticket sales. Why did you always choose the sales route, right? Because I know you have a degree in marketing, correct?
Yeah, yeah, you are correct. I just feel like sales was always what I was going to be good at. Every single dollar that I've accumulated today in my account is because of me talking. Like if I really think about it, right? Every single dollar, every single person I've met is just because of the way I speak online, which is kind of surreal to me. But it also speaks testament of like why I think sales was the right move. I'm not discrediting anything else. Like, I think marketing is super important, but for me, I just always had a passion when it came to talking with people. I've always been very outgoing and extroverted. I know it's a pretty basic thing to say, but it actually is true, right? If you're gonna force somebody who's very, very introverted, they can still make a lot of money in sales, but it takes a bit of time, and it was just an easy transition for me. Full transparency.
Yeah, interesting. I'm kind of curious about that specifically. You said it was like the natural thing for you. Maybe did you realize that in university? Have you always realized that? Were you like, 12 years old and you're like, I'm pretty good at speaking, or was there sort of like a moment where you're like, okay, I'm pretty good at this. I'm pretty good on camera. I'm good with people, and like this is the direction I should kind of take.
Yeah, actually, I was never a good speaker. To this day, I still get nervous when I, go on when I go on big webinars online. Like I
Sure.
did like a Harvest Discord community chat the other day where like 50 people like chimed in on Discord to like listen to one of my Q&As. And yeah, I still to this day get a little bit like, nervous when those types of things arise. I don't think it's about the speaking in general. I think it's more just about when I was growing up, I always threw myself in like uncomfortable situations, and it just made it easier and easier to speak, confidently in front of people that I didn't know. I'll give you an example. Like I joined like a school club at university, and the club was like I had to get sponsorships for events that we were hosting for university for like frosh for those types of events, and like just throwing myself in there was a great example of like me having to go out of my comfort zone, take the interview, go talk to clients, go get people, go get sponsors for the club. I'm just always putting myself out there. Even in class I was always trying to raise my hand and like try to actually answer the questions the right way. I think it's just, yeah, if you just sit back and stay quiet, you never know if you're actually going to be good at speaking in the first place.
Yeah, interesting. Colton, you got anything on that, or should I keep rolling?
No, I was just going to say it's kind of interesting too, because personally, I wasn't the best speaker in
Yeah.
high school and elementary school. Still learning and progressing, but yeah, it's putting yourself outside that comfort zone. But no, Tyler, if you have a question, go off.
Yeah, it's a good point. We're all going to relate with that, right? Same with me. I used to wear a hoodie in class because I'd be like too scared to get called upon, and I probably wasn't as good as you at forcing myself to actually speak up in class.
Yeah.
I'd hide behind that hoodie. So it's like kind of random that now me and Colton are like 23 podcast episodes deep, and I post on social media every day. It's a pretty big change. Going back to what you said earlier before we lose it, you obviously got into high ticket sales because of your neighbor. And you said that you felt like you could do it just as well as him, even though you were working a corporate job and stuff. Have you always kind of had that mindset?
Yeah. I think that right there, Tyler, is an incredible question because most people don't really delusionally back themselves. I always believe that I'm better than everybody else, and like it's not a good thing. But I just have that other, like, even in sports, like if we're gonna go play basketball or if we're gonna go to the gym, like I want to beat the PR. I want, like, it's just a tick that I have inside of me, and yeah, I think that is a big part of it. Like if you are always second guessing your own abilities, then you're never gonna actually know what you're capable of, 100% in any circumstance.
Especially in sales, right? How you can convince someone else to like, buy with you if you don't believe in yourself, right?
Yeah, I think that's another thing we can talk about later in this call as well. It's not even like convincing. It's just like having a good conversation with somebody is so undervalued, right? I'm not even the best convincer. I just think people enjoy speaking to me on calls. Like that's really it. But we'll get into that for sure. Like I get where you're going with that.
Yeah.
Sure, we'd love to get into that later. Now, Tristan, you kind of walked us through how you went from BDR to closing setting. Can you take us through when you first got that setting job and kind of the initial struggles and transition from BDR to high ticket setter?
Yeah, you mean like the transition from corporate to high ticket?
Corporate to high ticket, working
The
at home.
transition was, yeah, it was super easy. I was waking up at 8 a.m., going to work, my office at 9. I was doing 9-hour days and then coming home at like 6. I had no energy to go to the gym. And then all of a sudden, the new year starts and I'm waking up and I'm going on my phone and I can go get coffee with my mom. I can go to the gym and work. I was just DM setting at the time, Colton. So obviously we know the difference. But DM setting just requires you to be on your phone. And so I was literally just doing what I wanted to do with my day, going to class, working, coming back from homework, working, going to the gym, working. And I was making double what I was making at my corporate. And I was like, okay, there's some potential here. This is something that I can really, do full time. And I think to this day, the one of the coolest moments I had was like waking up when that first paycheck hit my account. It was like I was in bed, I slept in, I didn't have to go to work Monday morning, and like it was like 2.9K CAD hit my account or something. I was like, this is insane. Like, I'm like, how is this even possible? So the transition to answer your question was super easy.
That's interesting. I'm curious about, obviously you made that transition because you had a good neighbor who was doing that. What would you tell somebody? I know you have a community as well, which we'll probably get into more later, but like someone
Yeah.
listening right now, what would you tell them if they don't have a neighbor in high ticket sales? Like what's the first step they can take, probably just from their phone to sort of make
Yeah.
that transition?
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a lot of micro influencers out there. Technically, you guys and myself are like, we're trying to post content. We're not really trying to influence. I actually no, we're trying to influence. I would say we're all micro influencers for sure. Like we're trying to make our mark. I would say for somebody that doesn't have like a direct next door neighbor, a lot of these micro influencers are really open to speaking to you, right? I don't think people understand that if they message me, I will 100% get back to them and help them for free for anything that I can. And I think that's the cool part of the internet is you have your neighbors online. I could text Colton, like before I met Colton in person, like he could ask me for pretty much anything and I would have tried my best to give them to him, right? And so, I think if you're new and you're trying to break into a new space, it's like, yeah, try to find a few people who don't have big egos online and ask them as many questions as you can and try to get the questions that you want answered. And, ideally, you really like one of them and what they do and what they stand for and kind of the way they're living their life. And, that could be your quote unquote neighbor that you meet next door.